Hey, Rebel Rouser. I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7 by 7 We're at episode number 1588, and, this whole notion of a course correction, oh gosh. Alright, let's talk about the bigger story at hand beyond this, where this whole course correction business came from. So, the deal is this. J.J. Abrams has contracts. His company has contracts with Warner Brothers Television and Paramount Pictures. And those deals are expiring soon. And he wants to be working with just one company going forward. At least this is what industry insiders are saying. And so right now he and his team are allegedly in negotiations to sign up with basically just one media company, and it seems like Disney and Universal have the inside track on it because of what it is that he wants to create out of this big mega deal. He wants to be able to do projects that encompass film, television, digital content, music, games, and even theme park opportunities, and that's basically why Disney and Universal seem to be the ones that would be the front runners for working with J.J. Abrams and his company with Bad Robot to be able to do this because they're the ones with the theme parks. So, holy cow, what kind of idea is J.J. Abrams kicking around in his brain right now? The Variety article does note that this is the kind of deal that's usually reserved for, somebody who actually has an established franchise like, say, Avatar or Star Wars or Star Trek or James Bond, like that, right? And J.J. Abrams has not done that himself. He's only kind of refurbished a couple of franchises, if you will. And the article also notes that really the kind of deal that he's looking for has only been approached by one other person, and that would be Steven Spielberg. So this is quite a big thing that's happening in the works. And so this story was filled out with the help of at least 3 different people with knowledge of the negotiations and conversations that are happening. And one would presume, based on the way that the article is written, that one of these industry insiders, whoever it may be, is the person who used the phrase course correction, or maybe it's just the way that the writer of this particular article decided to phrase the idea of what's happening with episode 9, but it's put in context with Solo: A Star Wars Story and saying that it's a course correction from, these standalone movies where they didn't necessarily quite perform up to the original expectations. So basically saying, hey, Solo's box office didn't do as well as everybody hoped, and so episode 9 is supposed to be a course correction thereof. Of course, is that really accurate? Solo is exactly what it was supposed to be, and we've talked about that a lot on the podcast. And, maybe it's just one of those things where, you hear episode 9 as a course correction, and with all the stuff that we went through about The Last Jedi, you kind of hear that phrase and contextually just kind of, jump up at it and go, oh, are they just talking about this again? Is that what this is really all about? And, I got to thinking about the possibility of whether J.J. Abrams would really, quote unquote, course correct. If it was, if we took it at that, that far-flung meaning, if we said, okay, what if that was actually accurate? What if, J.J. Abrams decided, nah, I'm going to, utterly undo the stuff that Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi. The more that I try and actually give that some legitimate consideration and think, well, would he really do that? Would Lucasfilm really do that? The more that I dig into it, the more that the possibility just seems absolutely ludicrous. I mean, J.J. Abrams, being a very creative person and seeing what a creative situation that Rian Johnson created in The Last Jedi, I don't see how he goes back against it. It seems like it would be one of the worst things that you could possibly do to a fellow filmmaker, and you would demonstrate an utter and complete disrespect for that person's work. And so even if we assumed that J.J. Abrams didn't like what Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi, there's no reason to think that he would actually undo any of the major things that Rian Johnson set up. And what's more is that it would not be in Lucasfilm's interest to do that either, to let J.J. Abrams do something like that either, because what kind of message does that send to future filmmakers that might want to work with the Star Wars franchise down the line? Say the Benioffs and Weisses that we know of right now. You know, if James Mangold actually was interested in working on a Boba Fett movie, maybe he's going to be interested in working on another one. Same with Stephen Daldry, who was allegedly attached in negotiations at some point to an Obi-Wan movie. I mean, you know, it sends a really bad message in a situation like that. So not only can I not see J.J. Abrams doing anything like that, just creatively in general, but I can't see Lucasfilm as a business decision making that kind of conscious choice. And so, you know, this whole notion of a course correction, it just doesn't seem right. It's a real, like, off note in that whole Variety piece, unfortunately. It's just one of those weird things, but you know, the fact that J.J. Abrams is looking for a big deal like this, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is what he will do next after Episode 9 in the Star Wars franchise. It seems like it's more likely that he's looking to create his own opportunity, that, you know, he's finally said, all right, I've done the Star Wars thing, I've done the Star Trek thing, it's time for me to do my own thing. And that's, you know, what I think he is probably bringing to the table. Oh, and there's one other thing too, and that's the thing that we haven't really talked about all that much, and that out of all the things related to the sequel movies, I think I most desperately want to know is where does this fall within the treatments that George Lucas sold Lucasfilm with to Disney. You know, from what little we've gathered in snippets that have been revealed here and there, mostly by Pablo Hidalgo from the Story Group, the treatments that Lucas sent in with the sale, there are elements of those treatments that are making their way into the sequel movies. Significant ones, if, you know, the hints that we've been getting are actually, you know, as dead on as we think they are. And if that's the case, that's another reason why you wouldn't expect a lot of, you know, change from Rian Johnson's version of Episode 8 to J.J. Abrams' version of Episode 9, because if they are in fact drawing from that you know, series of treatments that Lucas submitted, well then, yeah, I don't see how Lucas decides to pull a fast one like that and then utterly undo it either. That just doesn't seem like a George Lucas thing to do. You know, maybe give you a way to reinvent something possibly, but yeah, I'm not seeing it. But one thing's for sure is that I definitely wish J.J. Abrams and his team the best of luck in securing whatever deal this is. And I hope it is, in fact, the case that he has a really good idea up his sleeve, because if he does, then I think it's going to be a really exciting thing to have sometime down the line. I don't know. That sounds like something that would probably be maybe even as much as a decade away. But, you know, who knows? It could happen even sooner. Maybe 5 years, maybe 6, if he's able to land that deal and get something moving. Could be some very exciting stuff. Anyway, that is going to do it for the show today. I hope you will consider subscribing to the podcast wherever you happen to be catching it, and I hope you will consider joining me for this daily dose of Star Wars joy and putting a little tip in the tip jar at patreon.com/SW7X7. For now, though, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2018 Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.